Hello everyone! Today I'm really excited to be making this video. Today we're going to be walking through an AI pen test, or penetration test. And this is essentially kind of using AI to ethically hack our applications and find vulnerabilities. And this is a pretty new case for AI. It's kind of been the big buzz at the moment. There's been an area that we've expected to happen, but we're not expecting it anymore. It is well and truly here. And we're going to be walking through Aikido's AI pen test and all of its capabilities and what it actually looks like, and what is the difference between doing an AI pen test and doing other automated scanning like endpoint scanning or DAST scanning. So strap in, it's going to be an awesome video. Now, of course, I could go on forever about all the different types of vulnerabilities that we find. That would be very boring, and I'm sure there's lists out there that you can find. But I wanted to kind of grasp at a key concept. And that is, how is agentic pen testing or AI pen testing different from DAST? So you can imagine it can do everything that DAST do, but then go way beyond that, outside of that scope, and actually start applying lots of creativity and logic to it. So yes, we can find an SQL injection vulnerability, but we'll also be able to find business logic flaws, which these automated tools can't find because they can't apply logic to their finding. And this comes back to the kind of deterministic way that security has always been done. Determinism meaning that it's either kind of got a vulnerability or it's not. And the non-deterministic way, or non-determinism, that AI models work in, whereas they kind of work in these various bounds of maybe and yes and no and if. And that's actually quite good in this case, because we can start adapting things as we go, altering our payloads and moving on. Now let's just kind of get into it. Let's just actually launch an AI pen test, go through all the steps and watch exactly what it does, because I think that's just the best way to figure this all out. So I'm logging into my Aikido dashboard here, and then down the bottom we have a pen test button. Now obviously I've done a few just to kind of understand around this, but let's start a new project, and we're going to do a notes app pen test. So before we kind of get into that, I'll just quickly show you what I want to be pen testing. So I have this vulnerable application that you have. So I'm going to register in here just to kind of get started, so that there is an account now that we're logged in. And this is obviously nothing very special. It's a note-taking app, but we're going to pen test this because we know that there are some vulnerabilities and some kind of tricky vulnerabilities in here to discover. So let's get started. Let's create our first assessment, and we're going to add it in the domain that we want to pen test. And first of all, I want to kind of draw attention to this. We can test the entire application, so we can do a holistic kind of penetration test, or we can test just specific spots. And what's great about everything about the pen test is that you can just use native language to describe everything. So if there was just a specific feature that you wanted to test, you know, if you want to say that to log in and test the note-taking ability only, you know, then it's going to ignore everything around that. Obviously, we're going to test the entire application, and we'll go ahead and continue there. It does a quick connectivity test. We have our allowed domain. Now, this is obviously quite a simple app, so we can kind of stick to that. Next, we need to add in authentication. So I created a user in this. So if you have admin accounts or whatever permission that you want to give your pen tester. So when you're doing a pen test, sometimes you may give them no authentication to see what they can find. Sometimes you may give them authentication of a user, of a privileged user, of an admin user, you know, of a developer account, or like whatever you want to be able to give to try and find what vulnerabilities you can. So in this case, we just have a standard user login. The username is user1. The email is fake@hotmail.com. And my password is... And here you can also add in things like your API keys or whatever authentication you want. And you can also add in two-factor authentication processes so that they can successfully log in two-factor authentication. Just basically what a normal pen tester would want. Let's go ahead to the next area. Now, this part is really important in the pen test, and that's adding in our code repositories. So here I have my pen test code repository, and this is actually the code of our application. So you can actually not add in a repository if you want, but the repository is super important because it gives your pen test huge amounts of context. Why this is more powerful in an AI pen test rather than a traditional pen test is that if you have a particularly large application with a huge set, a pen tester is not going to be able to look at all of that. It's just impossible to be able to go through an entire code base and try and find some 0 days in there. AI pen testers can. They can have all of that context and use it to harness. So this is actually an area where it's really going to excel over a human pen test. Underneath it, we can add kind of additional context. Now, so I've just kind of pasted in information here about our application. Now, if you don't put anything in here, it's still going to look in your repository and it'll probably be able to figure out a few things, but this is just going to help it along the way. And then here you go upload data. And you may wonder kind of what kind of files should you upload? You can literally upload anything that you think would help a normal human pen tester, right? So in this case, you could upload, for example, your previous pen test report. So here, I've uploaded my previous pen test report. So if I wanted to kind of give it information of what last was discovered, interesting context, you could give it a map of your infrastructure, of your architecture. You can kind of give it whatever you want. It's going to be able to figure out how to use it. That's what makes this so cool, is that you can just kind of give this information, notes, scribble it down. It doesn't have to be correctly formatted. You can just kind of dump your brain in here. Super cool. All right, moving on. Now we need to look at the type of pen test. So these are credit-based pen tests. So what that means is you can decide to do kind of a regular scan, which is 6,000 credits. Now this will cover a standard application, like whatever that means, but roughly a standard application. If you want to kind of do regular pen tests, you do a big one twice a year, let's say, and then you do lots of little pen tests when you roll out significant features or all of that, then you can just do a release scan. One of the questions that you may have is what happens if it runs out of credits like halfway? Well, when you put this in, it actually formulates a plan for your pen test based on how big it is. And it will prioritize everything so that you still get as much value as you can, even just from the release scan. And the release scan can still be very interesting. It's just going to target your lowest hanging fruit first. And this is particularly good if you've added in some context at the start to be like, hey, I only want you to test this feature. Now we can do our release scan from it. Or we can just do our regular scan, which we're going to do here. Now, if you have a particularly big application, then you can kind of adjust the amount of credits and agents and everything that you want to use, based on how big you are. But let's be honest, you're probably going to start with one of these regular options anyway to start with. So here we've got a little bit of safety, and basically what this means is that pen tests can be disrupted. Now they're not going to go in there and try and disrupt your service, but the idea is that they find vulnerabilities. Those vulnerabilities may indeed actually create some kind of disruption. And so if you're operating this in production and not, a staging environment, which I would really recommend that you do, that you run this in a staging environment, but if you don't, here are some things you can do. This bar here is a number of requests per second. So this is basically how long your pen test is going to take, but also how much load it's going to put on your application. So if you are doing this prod, maybe you don't mind that it takes a few hours longer, or if you're doing it in staging, maybe it's a good opportunity to see how it deals with load and what actually happens. And then you can also do it, inside of business hours, or to kind of set your own time zone, things like that. Just standard kind of safety issues that you would tell a pen tester. We have a summary here of kind of like what we have, and then all of a sudden we can just go ahead and run our application. So we confirm that we're not going to get angry, and we have been warned that this could create some disruption. Okay, now that our pen test is running, we don't just need to sit and wait for it to finish. We can actually watch what is happening and see all of the reasoning that it's taking. So I'm going to click here and we can go look at our agents. Now, this is kind of like the agent view where you can kind of see what the agent is seeing, in a way. You can look at the kind of application pages that they're on. You can look at their terminals. You can see what's happening. But you can also look at all of their logs. So when you click here, you can actually view exactly what the agent is doing. And then you can see all of the kind of tasks that it's done, the outputs, the requests that it's sent. And you can also look at where it says agent thinking. This is when it's kind of deciding what it's going to do next. What is the next step that I'm going to take in this process? And it's really interesting to watch it think like a hacker would. So you can view that from the agent view, or you can click on the agents and kind of see all of them. This gives you an overview of what's still running, what's completed, and you can look at the preliminary results if you want. This is all finished now, and in our overview, you can see how long each agent took to run. Now, this isn't kind of running one after the other. This is running simultaneously, obviously. So we can see that the whole process took just a little over 2 hours. And we can also click on our activity log, which is the same activity log per agent, but just kind of complete. So you can look at everything that's happening, and it gives you a summary of each agent. Once it's finished, we can also see the issues that it's found. So in this case, we've found 9 issues, 3 of them are critical, and 4 of them are high severity. So the criticals are things like remote code execution, SQL injection. So we can click on View the Attack Analysis, and it gives us a summary, a description of the complete issue that we face, the risk of what that is, but then it also gives us the reproduction steps. This is really critical. So it actually tells us exactly what to do. In this case, it's telling us to navigate to the public notes page here, kind of create a timing-based SQL injection attack. This is the payload that we need to deliver. And it gives us a step to recreate this exact SQL injection vulnerability. That's super, super cool. So you can verify everything that it's actually found. There's one other really magical thing, is that what you'll notice is that there is a button up the top of this analysis that says Autofix. And that does exactly what you think it might do. It finds the elements in your code base. So in this case, we're looking at the remote code execution vulnerability. It's found all the files that relate to this in our code base, and it's going to generate code fixes so that we don't have this issue. It's mind-blowingly powerful. So here is the code fixes that we need to apply. Obviously, there's multiple files and multiple places that we need to fix this, and we just create a pull request. Done. Incredible. The last thing that I'll show you is the report. So when you get a pen test, you expect to get a report back from that. And this is no different. We get a full report. So it gives us, our executive summary of all the findings, what it has, what it looked at, how we're doing. It gives us a summary of the key findings, the vulnerabilities, how many it found, and the categories that they are in. It will give us kind of the detailed findings. So this is, the description, the reproduction steps that we've already talked about. All of that will be in this report. This is something easily that you can share with your team, and you can immediately see the value from this in each step. And that's kind of it. It's like a pen test, but it's with AI. Who would have known? But what I love about this is its ability to be able to auto-fix problems, go deeper, and have more context than a human would in a set amount of time. And also the fact that it can be done so quickly. And in the same day, you can run a pen test, solve your issues, and then rerun a limited scope pen test on your issues just to validate them. And the other thing is, this isn't science fiction. You don't need to go through a 12-step process to make sure that you're actually able to use this. You can go to aikido.dev and use this today. So I would really recommend checking it out, having a play. If nothing else, it's really, really fun to play around with this and feel a little bit like a hacker.